everybody around the world. This is Heather Lockett with Lasting Conversations. Today, we are with the fantastic and fabulous Lyndsay Dowd. Hey, Lyndsay.
Hey, Heather. Good to be with you.
Great to see you. And you were in Massachusetts, one of my all-time favorite places. Hopefully, I'll be returning to move back, but we talked about that too. So here we are, and we got connected by a beautiful soul. And the world is just an infinite tapestry that leads us all together. And so here we are today, and we're going to talk about heart-led leadership. We're going to talk about your book, which is the Top Down Culture, meaning everything starts from the top, meaning ourselves, and it works its way through. You have a long, fruitful business career. You've been in sales, and now that morphed into a beautiful business, helping people be their best selves within the business community and in their lives. And you have a top 5% global podcast called Heartbeat for Hire. So, Lyndsay, welcome, and tell us about you and all the beautiful things that you're bringing to this world.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on your show. And sure, I'll share my story. So I spent 25 plus years in corporate America, and 23 of them were climbing the ranks at IBM. Started in customer service, worked my way up to executive, and was managing big sales teams for them. And at the end of 23 years, I was ready for a change. And oh, by the way, my family put in 105 years. So it was quite a big blue legacy. I was born into it and didn't know that that's where I would end up. But at the end of 23 years, I was ready for a change. And another company sought me out and said, would you come run a sales team for us? And I said, sure. So I left what I knew. I went to this other company, and it didn't go the way I planned. And in 6 short months, they fired me. And anyone that knows me knows that wasn't part of my plan. And I was gutted. I was sideways. I was devastated. I took it very personally. And I didn't realize that every executive at that level gets fired at some point in their career. But at the time, it was deeply painful. And after a month of licking my wounds, I asked myself 3 questions. What am I good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? I knew how to build modern leaders, and I knew how to create irresistible culture that drives results. I had done it many times. And so I started my company, Heartbeat for Hire. And that was just 2 years ago. And like you said, I wrote a book and I started a podcast, and I have a ton of things going on. But basically, what I do is I do long-term coaching engagements with C-suites. I do coach individual leaders, and I speak to companies on all of these topics. And I also teach LinkedIn workshops. So yeah, pretty busy.
And on top of all of that, we're going to add that you're a mom and you have a family and a household and a husband. And so all of these things fit so intrinsically together. And as we're taping, this is the month of May, and we're celebrating moms and the juggle, but mostly how to then, because we are leaders in our own households as well. So how are you piecing this all together? And another question that we'll get into is right now, people are feeling quite disconnected, especially with their jobs and their companies. And so how are you able to help bridge these communication gaps? Maybe there's age. It's generational. The word is generational. People are, I'm in my 60s, still working, and people are coming up fresh out of college. Yeah. So all of these things fit together. It's so important to do our own personal works, but hear from as a leader in our own lives and in our families, in our communities, and our businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about leading with heart, and I talk a lot about the true tenets of modern leadership come in the form of power skills. We don't call them soft skills around here. They're far too important, and they are what make modern leaders. And that's really what people have not been trained in. They've certainly been trained in how to manage people, but they haven't been trained how to inspire, how to build trust, how to create psychological safety. And this is what modern leadership is about. And when you ask a room full of people, have you ever had a bad leader? 100% will raise their hand.
Right.
If you ask, have you ever had a great leader? You might get half. You might.
Right.
And we saw this craving, this desire for a shift with the Great Resignation. We saw all these people just get completely fed up and say, I deserve better. I'm going to leave this job, even if I don't have one, and I'm going to go somewhere where I feel valued. Now, what I teach is how to make your teams feel inspired and not manipulated, inspiration versus manipulation. I spend a lot of time with leaders reframing and figuring out the best way to communicate. I think people are taught you've got quotas, you've got deadlines, you've got to get the job done. And there's been a very kind of, when you look at the history of business, it was started in manufacturing. It was very patriarchal. You punched your card, you did your job, you went home, don't ask any questions. And a lot of that carried into the white collar business world. And it's still very patriarchal. And though there has been this lovely emergence of women in big leadership positions, it's not where it needs to be. And even women, we've been modeling what we saw. So the reason the book is called Top Down Culture is because we model from the top. And when you can fix a C-suite, which is what I focus on, the culture, the leadership, the inspiration, the performance all comes when you're leading from the top and you're leading with heart. Now, I would be a giant hypocrite if I didn't do this with my own family and I didn't do this with my own kids. So I have teenage twins, and they have a lot of trials and tribulations in their lives right now. And sometimes they just want to be heard, and sometimes they want to be left alone. But the message is, I've got to meet them where they are. And that's what you have to do with employees too. You can't assume it's a one size fits all. I can't parent my twins the same way. They're dramatically different people, and they need different things. So yeah, do I have my moments of losing my what and screaming my head off at them? Of course, they're my kids. They challenge you. But I also know that I have to give them space. I have to let them earn trust. For me, trust is built two ways. You can shatter trust very, very quickly in the business world. But you can also really screw up trust with your family. And you've got to really focus on why it's so important to build that trust. And that's where all the magic stems from. Trust is your currency.
Oh, it certainly is, and I love that you gave the shout out to our humanness, and we all crack, and
We do.
that's what makes us human. And then people are here also to press our buttons, and especially our kiddos.
Of course.
They are the deal breakers here. I mean, the new wheelhouses. So it's in autonomy. So, but what you're saying is just so true. And how are you finding businesses these days? Are you finding, well, clearly you have a thriving business. So do the companies, the CEOs reach out to you to say, I would like to build a better team. Give me some help, or does it become mandated? It's maybe a board says, this isn't working, and help.
It's a combination of things, but I do think the CEOs I like to work with the most are the ones who have had a coach before.
Right.
And that usually means they are open-minded enough to know they have more to learn. And you know what, Heather? Nobody knows everything.
Right.
Everybody has to learn things. No matter how senior and experienced you are, we all have things to learn. And
every day, yeah.
You hit on it before with we've never had this many generations in a workforce, and our Generation Z needs very different things than our boomers do. And, when you see the kinds of things that they need, it doesn't occur to a leader who's been doing it for a long time why they need different things. So these are handy kids. So they survived the pandemic. They require feedback and support, and they have to know that it's okay to fail. But these are also the kids who would prefer to text a help desk, do self-checkout, and never speak to a person. So they don't understand protocol. They don't understand that when something goes wrong, you don't go straight to the CEO. You try and work with your manager. And, managers need to really meet people where they are and figure out the question I always encourage leaders to ask, and it's a humbling question, is how can I be the best leader for you? When you ask that question, you will get different answers from everyone on your team. And that's based on age, it's based on tenure, it's based on goals, it's based on experience. All of those things contribute to them having a vision for where they want to take their career. And I've heard answers to that questions like, stay out of my way. I just need an escalation point. I've heard people say, you know what, I could use some role playing. I don't think I've got this down. Can we work on that? And others are like, I don't understand my job. I came over here from an acquisition or another team. I had a girl from marketing that came over to my sales team. She was putting up zeros for the first 2 months. And when I became her manager, and I'm like, nobody even taught her how to lie. Like, nobody puts up zeros in sales. This is bad. And so I talked to her and I asked her, I said, PJ, what's going on? Tell me, what are you doing in the job? What's your biggest concern? She's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I came here from marketing. I don't understand my job. And I said, okay, cool. Let's start. And I would say, these are the kinds of things you can say. This is your goal. These are the relationships you need to build and you need to work on. And if you screw up, we've got your back. Do you know, Heather, by us telling her that, she became my top performer in 6 months. She was going to be managed out of the business because she wasn't doing her job. But I met her where she was, and she needed that encouragement. She needed to know it was safe to fail, and she needed to know that we had her back. And she had some partners and some customers that were really challenging. We helped her through those processes, and she knew she could come to us as a management team, and we wouldn't berate her. We wouldn't make her feel bad. We would say, okay, can we reframe it next time this way? And what maybe you missed was this part, but you're doing great. That's why she shined. So it's just amazing when you can really get under what is troubling people. And sometimes it's the smallest stuff.
Well, everything that you're saying is leading from the heart, which means it's a human connection. And I think in so many ways, people that are in it at the workforce are feeling that they have been disconnected. They might still be craving that human touch. I know somebody who's in the HR industry with a very large company, and she's brilliant at what she does. Her clients love her. She gets the task done. However, there's been an odd shift into automation and data. They want data for sales and data. So now she's doing 3 things, none of which have to do with, and she's getting dinged for not doing the bot stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's also taking away from her customer service clients, but she's not getting praise or acknowledgement for the work at hand.
Yeah.
It's very odd. So how are you finding or helping people, or even the companies themselves, understand what are your goals? Are you here to be like these odd sales machines, or have you also missed that human connection? Because it sounds, everything you're talking about is about human connection and seeing
100%.
what's needed. It's
100%.
seeing what's needed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing I want to comment on is on HR specifically. If you are a large company, and I'm talking like, 1,000 employees or more, maybe 10,000 employees, you need to have a voice for HR, and you need it to be in a proactive role. And by that, I mean, at a minimum, you need a VP of HR. Ideally, you have a CHRO, and you give them a seat at the table. The reason you do this, and I learned this from one of my sales leaders, she was the only leader I have ever had who invited our HR partner to our sales meeting. Think about that. I worked for a company with 400,000 employees. I had one leader who did this in all the years I was there. And the reason she did that was because she wanted to put that person in a position to be proactive, to help her assess where they had needs. And here's the big misconception. I have a CEO I'm coaching currently, and we talked about our long-term engagement and what we want to work on together. And she's like, well, I really like coaching my C-suite. And I'm like, it's cute. You don't have time for that. You have a day job. So I love that you want to do that. And I love that your heart is in the right place, but you don't have the bandwidth for that. So you need somebody who's on the outside to be able to give feedback, to be able to tell you, observations of team calls and engagement. All of that stuff is really important because a CEO doesn't have time. But then we talked about a VP of people, and she's like, well, they're going to do that. VP of people doesn't have time for that. So the missing piece of it all is, how do we get better? And how do we get our people to perform? Well, this is through what you just said, through human touch. It's through connection. It's through meeting them where they are and getting to know them on their level. And when you start asking the people on your team questions, simple questions, tell me about your life. Do you have a partner? Do you have a pet? What's your favorite food? Do you like to travel? Write all this stuff down, or even better, put it in your phone, because when they call, you can say, how's your partner, Sandy? If it's Sam, you sound like a jerk, but pay attention. And the more you invest, you don't have to love everybody. You don't have to
Right.
lead with, I love you. I'm not saying that. The reason we do these things is because you're going to have to deliver tough messages. I had to lay people off. That was one thing I swore I never wanted to get good at, and I didn't. But when you deliver those messages, people know that's not you talking. That's the
Right.
company talking. That's bottom line stuff. That is a script I had to follow. And most of the cases, A, they saw it coming. B, they felt bad that I had to do it, which was mind boggling to me,
Mhm.
because I'm like, I'm affecting your life in the worst way. I should not be getting an apology from you, but thank you for giving me that grace. And we've maintained relationships since then. But I think the point of all this is leadership is hard, and you have to deliver tough messages, but do it in a way that when you show up, you are consistently shining the spotlight on others. You are being vulnerable. You are admitting you don't know everything, and you're giving people opportunities to shine. When you do that, all the cards will fall in the right place, and you will watch your team blossom and perform. It just, I've lived it, I've coached it. It's very, very cool when you watch it happening.
This is great. And what comes to mind also are folks that feel like they're in the middle. Maybe you're a teacher, or
Yeah.
you're in a school district, but you're not the superintendent, and you're certainly not the politicians making policy for the education, or you're in the middle rungs
Sure.
of your company. So you're not the C suites.
Mhm.
And then you were talking about the generation who want to leap over, they want to get things done. Most of that is because they feel whatever bureaucracy bubble,
Sure.
there's too many steps in the way. So, speak to us about those that feel like they're in the middle. Maybe they're feeling that they are disempowered because
Yeah.
they're in the middle.
I love that you brought that up, because one of the things I love to teach is you do not have to have HR responsibilities to be a leader. And whether you're
Right.
a middle manager or an individual contributor, you have an opportunity to lead. And how
Yep.
you show up for the people around you really does matter. So if you decide tomorrow or today, even, I'm going to start shining the spotlight on people who help me. I'm going to start letting everyone know I see what Monica is doing over there, and I see what Jared is doing over there, and I want people to know how awesome they are. When you start doing that, you are perceived as a generous leader, but you're also being perceived as someone who knows how to spot talent. And
Right.
that is a really important skill. But that behavior is contagious. I'll tell you a little story. There was a VP of sales. It was a call center, and she was working in this call center. And she started implementing this practice every time she heard something great, or someone won a deal, or they sounded great on a call. She would walk by their desk and leave a sticky note on their desk that would say, great job on that last call, or I heard you on that last call. Love the way you phrase that. Something small. And she would do this 5 or 6 times a day. And everyone started to notice, and everybody wanted that post-it note because they were
Mhm.
being seen. But you know what happened? The whole team started doing it for each other.
There you
And
go.
so it became this contagious, positive environment of, I see you over there. How did you do that? I want to know how to do that. Will you spend some time with me? So all of a sudden, there's collaboration, there's communication, there's observation, there's innovation. All of these things are coming from this simple human practice of, I see you. And that is a really important thing that anybody can do as a leader. And when you are in a position of leadership, don't sleep on the people that support your team. If they don't report to you, but they do your contracts, or they do, some pivotal part of your workday, bring them on a
Right.
team call and recognize them. And whenever I had a budget of points or dollars or whatever, I exhausted that budget as many times as they would allow. I always asked for more money. And I gave it away as often as I could. Some people are like, "Oh, I'll save it to the end of the year." Don't. Sometimes they'll
Right.
give you more money, but you can be so creative with the way you recognize people, and lifting each other up that way and shining the spotlight looks good on you. Don't be that leader that has to think, if I'm not the responsible one for this idea, they won't think I'm doing good things. Hey, these people report to you. They're a reflection of you. That's all goodness. Let them shine. It lets you shine. It doesn't dim your light at all.
Well, these are beautiful things. And last night I popped onto LinkedIn and I noticed that you had a post about, you just listed your day. And
Mhm.
these are the great things that you did. And not only was the list prolific, but what was so fun about it, it was a great practice to say, what could I got to do today? And because so many people go, oh my God, I'm so busy. No, I got to talk to this person, and then I talked to this person, and this person was connected because of this person. And then because we talked over here, we get to do something fun over here.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see it in writing and yet very organic. So tell us about that. Have you done that all the time, or it just came to you
No,
yesterday of saying, look what I get to do today? And
I
that's the
start.
part of the reframing
Yeah.
when we can feel overwhelmed, or especially in work, just or even in the course of the day. But what did I get to do today
Yeah.
versus the muddle of it all?
I think anybody that lives with gratitude, or in my case, I survived a near death experience. So I am like very, um, I embrace life. I really take it seriously in that I love to just devour every moment I've got. And so a couple months ago, I started doing this practice. Every Thursday, I do a post, and it's the who I got to speak with in the last week, and some fun things that happened along the way. And I started adding pictures to it, so it's now become kind of a catalog of my calendar. But it also shines the light on some really great people that I get to meet. And many times on LinkedIn, especially people that are starting out and just, trying to get their courage up to start posting, they just need a little love. And so what I found is my network likes to connect with the people that I mention. And so they all get to grow as a result of it. But it is my way of giving back to the people that give their time to me. And it's really fun to kind of look back and say, I did all this stuff this last week. This is pretty cool. But yeah, it was really designed to shine a light on others and give them some LinkedIn love. But also, you know, looking back at, there's some really fun stuff going on in my life.
I love it. And it was just really great. And again, it's organic, but it's such a beautiful tip. And it's even better than, well, we have gratitude lists, and those are always great to have. But this took it, as I felt, it took it a step further, where it was in depth, and it gave that mutual shout out to somebody, as you were saying. So that's a wonderful little tip for people as well. And so, oh, I don't want to lose this question. It had to do with um, mm, keep going with something else because I'm just brain farting here. There was something, but
So
keep on going.
I'll give everyone a LinkedIn tip that I think is right in line with what we were talking about. So the rule of thumb on recommendations, you have to remember that your LinkedIn landing, your profile is your landing page. That is when you are Googled, that is the first thing that comes up unless you have a website. So when you look at your recommendations, the rule of thumb is you don't want them to be more than a year old. So ideally 6 months or less. And the best way to get recommendations is to give recommendations. So go out this week, over the weekend, whenever, write 3 unsolicited recommendations about people you've worked for, people who've worked for you, people who you've worked with, a business partner, a colleague, a friend who inspires you. Go and write a heartfelt recommendation. Couple things are going to happen. One, they're going to be really delighted, and sometimes they'll cry. Two, they're going to turn around and write you one in return. But to know you've been thought of by someone you respect is an incredible gift. And when you do this and you make it a regular practice, your recommendations list will be nice and long. these are your testimonials. And if you aren't an entrepreneur and you don't have testimonials on your website, maybe you're a corporate employee or you're, working for a family business, you need this. So it's a great way to give back, but also get something in return that you really need on your own page.
Well, I like that you mentioned corporate employee because I think many times, and you were 25 years in one company,
Yeah.
that people are thinking, okay, well, I'm here, I'm doing my job, and that's all. But I'm sensing that you would suggest constantly doing things like that to be fresh and to engage other people because you never know when you're going to need these connections for
Mhm.
something else.
Yeah.
And I would think it adds to not feeling stale and even burned out.
Well, you hit on something that is so important. First, you are so much more than just your job. So
Hmm.
that's the first thing. You are a 360-degree human. You've got lots more to offer than just that job. Your job could be very important, but you are more than that. Two, everyone needs to build their own personal brand, whether you work for a company or not. And I will tell you, I've been on LinkedIn since 2006, but I was not active on LinkedIn really until the last couple years when I started my company. And when I lost that job, I had a built-in network with IBM that continued into the other job. And then all of a sudden, I don't have that pool of people to pull from anymore. So I really had to curate my network. And how do you do that? The best tip I can give is commenting on other people's stuff. So go and start to look at the topics you are interested in. This is the fastest way to grow is to go and live in the comments. Be generous. And if you are listening to this, you are never going to write great post and give it a like. That is the lamest thing you could do. So you're going to go out, you're going to say why this resonated with you, why you liked it so much, or start a banter even in someone's post. It brings everybody's networks to that post. But you are projecting with your LinkedIn profile, you are projecting what you want people to know about you, what you want to do with your career. There is no such thing as company loyalty anymore. You have to create that for yourself. You have to create personal loyalty. And I will tell you, when I started being intentional with LinkedIn, I had like 1,100 followers. Now I'm over, I think, 8,500, 8,400. And it's not a numbers game. I don't accept it from everybody. I'm very specific and particular. If you want to connect with someone, send them a note. Tell them what inspired you. Do what Samantha McKenna teaches so well. And if you're not following her, go follow her. She's my favorite sales leader. She does something called Show Me You Know Me. She trademarked it. Go look at someone's profile, read something in it that's interesting, comment on it, and say why you want to connect with them. You will rapidly get those acceptances very, very quickly versus a blind, oh, want to connect with her. Hopefully she accepts.
Well, yes, 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 yes. And interestingly, so then there's Instagram because there's all these different platforms that people are utilizing. So I have a couple of things. One is that are you finding that generational? That certain generations for their work or for their identity, their own personal brand, if you will, are using Instagram versus LinkedIn versus maybe something else. I know there's the TikTok, and
Yeah.
that's great for others. But where or Facebook, and now Facebook's become kind of like for the younger people inside joke that older people use it.
Yeah.
So what I'm finding in terms of conversation, lasting conversations, people want their conversations in so many different ways.
Yeah.
You mentioned some folks never want to actually verbally speak. They're only texting. Some people are only, you can't find a phone number to have that even a text because it's only on an Instagram message or it's only on LinkedIn. And so even the number of hours in the day to spend on all these different sites. So speak to that. And then the other piece of that, now that we're rounding into the bot world, and I get a lot of invitations, but I can tell, are these even from real people, or these are now automatically generated, or they're just part of a sales thing? And so speak to how we can navigate all of those things within the world of our brand, our identity, and these organic and important connections.
Yeah. So first, I'll say this regarding LinkedIn. There's over 1 billion users on LinkedIn, and only about between 1 and 3% I've seen to, a range are active. So there's a lot of room for people to shine. The other thing is 2/3 of the users on LinkedIn are between the ages of 25 and 34. So
Okay.
anybody that thinks this is like our grandparents' social media
Good
or
to know.
parents' social media, that is absolutely not true. It is also the only profitable social media platform out there and was the first. Um, Second, if you are building your brand, which I recommend everybody does, whether you just do it on LinkedIn or you want to do it in multiple places, I'm on everything but X, but my content is consistent across all of the platforms. The guidance is pick two and focus on two.
Right.
Now, like you said, Facebook is kind of like my history. It's my parents, it's my school age friends, it's my college roommates. Like even my college roommates are more on Instagram than they are on Facebook. But Facebook, it's interesting. There are a lot of lurkers, which makes it sounds like a negative connotation, but there are people that won't like your content because they fear the repercussions of them. If I like this, my boss could see that, but they watch. Don't sleep on the lurkers. There are lots of people that are absorbing and digesting your content and they love it. They just might not be in a position to comment on it. And I get comments like, I watch every single thing you do. In fact, I show it to my husband. I'm like, you have never commented on anything I've ever done ever. She goes, no, but I don't miss a thing. And I'm like, okay, so that is happening.
Right.
But my tip is, you have different audiences on all the platforms, but I have friends that are my age and older who are crushing TikTok. I have friends that are killing it on Insta and have very little presence on LinkedIn. From a business perspective, LinkedIn is the business platform. However, people are showing up in very personal ways, and that content is resonating huge. So I have a friend who does like desk side yoga, and she does like deep breathing once a week, and everyone looks forward to these posts. It's like a 30-second video, maybe a minute. Everyone looks forward to them. They calm down. They love it. Now, is that business related? Not really. She's in sales, but I love that she does this, and she's got a sense of humor, and she did a cartwheel on video the other day, and people love it. And when you show up as a human, and on my profile, it says, I love wiener dogs because I do, and I'm a mom of twins. The amount of people that want to talk to me and need a place to start and start there, it's staggering. They love that I put some of my personal stuff out there because it's something they can relate to. So
This is, yeah.
It's important to think of yourself that way. I had a client once and she said, Lyndsay, I'm a cabaret singer. Should I put that on there? I'm like,
Heck yeah.
thing. So, I love when people tell me these things that we would never know about them. And, they put it out there and people love it. It's so cool.
It is. That's very cool. And these are just some wonderful, not only tips, but again, it's just so, it's easy. And of course, you're team human. So that's what also makes it easy. And a lot of people, you mentioned being shy about commenting because who else is looking? And so the phrase that came to mind is social shy. And I certainly know a lot of people that they're not doing any of it right now.
Yep.
And so, but again, focusing on business, we have to get out there. We don't have, I think the yellow pages might still be in business, but man, I used to love getting yellow pages because then you could see all this cool stuff. But these days, it's within the media, the social media structure, and so talk about your book a little bit. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, so I wrote the book. Here's the book. I wrote the book because I had so many stories about leadership, the good, the bad, the very, very ugly.
And it's called Top Down Culture for our listeners, the listeners. Yeah, Top Down Culture.
You can grab it on Amazon. It's an easy read. You are not going to sit there. It's not like a literary tome where you're going to have to like do 800-page chapter at a time. This is an easy read. It is broken down into really easy to apply chapters, but it's all story based. So everything I talk about gives an illustration of what to do or what not to do. And from what people tell me, they hear my voice really clearly in the book. So I tell, I have I have a few horror stories in the book, but those stories, it was interesting. My mother, who was a retired school teacher, had not planned on reading my book, which I found deeply painful. But she decided, oh, I better read the book. I thanked her for that. But she was like, I just don't know if I'm going to get it because I'm not in the business world and I'm a teacher. And then she finished it and she was like, there's a lot I could have used in the classroom in that book. So the approach that I talk about is not industry specific. It is not, it is a general leadership style that works for leaders in general. And, people ask me, Lyndsay, do you have a specific vertical that you work in? And my answer to that is no, because leadership is leadership. So whether you're a 6-person C-suite or an 8-person C-suite, I just need to know that you're committed and you want to evolve. You want to become modern. You want to drive results. And that's the whole point. So, while culture is fun, some people think culture is ping pong tables and, swag and free beer on Fridays. That is cultural Febreze. That is not culture. Those are perks. Culture is the feeling that people have when they talk about your company and would they recommend other people come and work there. It is so important now more than ever because there is no company loyalty anymore. You have to create a place that your employees want to be. And you have to create a space where they feel like they can fail and they feel they can be celebrated for the good that they put back into the workplace. But companies have changed. The workplace has changed. How we work has changed. Everything has changed. Why wouldn't our leadership practices change too? So that's really what it's about.
And that's great. I was just reminded of some businesses that basically what you were describing that they had created, and this is way before socials, but I think these things still happen. When crap happens, or maybe there's a fire, or maybe there's just something completely unforeseen or a financial catastrophe, whatever it is. But the stories over and over that the actual employees rallied around the owners, they rallied around the leaders because of those feels that you were talking about, that they felt like it was family. And it doesn't have to be creepy family, but it gets to what you're talking about. That's that connection that they have felt so seen and heard, that they are now a vested, this is their project, this is their baby too. And so let's all bring it back to fruition. So what you were just saying was describing how what we can put out there organically and with that actual resonance, if it's real and organic and not because it's a checkbox. Even when you were talking about the stickies, if it doesn't come from a place of genuine connection, it's going to fail miserably.
It will.
Yeah.
And I think the leaders that walk the talk, they are the ones that are beloved. I can tell you one of my leaders, she promoted me twice. And the first time she promoted me, she said, okay, so how do you want to run the business? And I was like, me? You want to know? Really? Holy cow, that's awesome. And when leaders are secure enough to do that and she's like, you've been in this space longer. You know these clients, you know what they need. Of course I want to listen to you. And of course, you know things I don't know. And that is a smart leader, because what she created was not just a friendship, but a loyalty that she has to this day. And we haven't worked together in a while, but we still send each other Christmas cards. We get together all the time. Like I'm such a dear friend we're dear friends to each other. But that came out of her giving me space to do the job I was hired for. And that is what every good leader does.
And
a great leader does.
A great leader. Well, yeah, because there's good leaders than the great ones. But the great ones, it also feels in your description here, is if somebody has done their own work and if they're confident enough in themselves that they want their employees, they want their team to fly.
Yeah.
So that you had somebody say, hey, you want to run this company, that means that their own egos have stepped out of the way
Yeah.
to make sure that there's flourishing.
Yeah.
And so speak more to that too, because
Yeah.
I think where you can hear about the drama and the trauma or the backhandedness or the gamesmanships and all this crap that can go on in these cultures. And that stems from somebody is poking the fire of discontent and not a good self-worth.
Yeah, I mean, I have another story of another leader. I was a client exec, which is a very big job at IBM, and I had a very large client with a $150 million quota, and the client was very, very complicated because we were each other's partners, we were each other's clients, and we were competitors. So talk about strings attached to everything we did. A big team of reps, of like 55 reps that were part of my team, and I was presenting my plan to my boss, and I knew the weight that this had. And so I'm presenting it to her, and she stopped me about halfway through and she says, girl, I've got your back. Now fly. And it took my breath away when she said it. And it gave me goosebumps then. It gives me goosebumps now. But that belief she had in me, I turned to my team and said, guys, we have an opportunity to do something different. Who haven't we talked to? What haven't we tried? Because I want to turn this on its head. I want to think differently about our relationship with our client. And if we screw up, she's got our back, but let's try. Do you know, we went and closed the largest deal either of us had ever seen. It was over $23 million. We crushed our numbers. We changed the entire relationship with this client in the best way. And it all stemmed from that moment of her saying, I've got your back. And when you think of how you can deliver that kind of support to the people that you work for, because leaders work for people, it's not the other way around. When you can do that, they will stretch, they will do things they never thought they could, and they will give you their utmost loyalty and respect. It's such an easy thing to do. Not enough leaders do it.
Well, and this circles back into the great resignation, where meaning when people just said, that's it, I want to, there's something else, there's something better for me, for my profession. As a very young person, you're still getting your wings are still wet. And so to have a good mentor to help even see, well, what are your gifts so that you can fly? But really, where I was going with it is this brings it back to where people are feeling unheard, unseen, unsupported, fearful every day. How many people get in their car or their train and they're terrified to go to those buildings or even log on and work from home? What are you saying that are you here to say, take heart, there are other companies, things are changing, and to make a move? Talk about people that can feel that there's got to be something better.
I really want people to stop and take a breath and think about their current health. Are they sleeping? Are they anxious? And I'll use my own example. So the company that fired me, I wasn't sleeping. I was so filled with anxiety. I was waking up at 2:00 in the morning and racing downstairs. Did I send that email? I can't remember if I did. And I was second guessing myself every moment of every day. And I had that leader that fired me said to me once, she goes, I don't like how you represented yourself on that call. You weren't good. You didn't represent the company well. Fix it for next time. Well, how do you think I did next time?
Right.
I sucked. I was terrible. I couldn't rely on my instincts. I couldn't rely on my sense of humor. I couldn't rely on my superpower, which is being able to read people. And all of that was taken away. And I couldn't function at my peak. And if you are in a position where you're snapping at your family, you're not sleeping, your health is being directly affected, stop. There are other jobs, and you absolutely need to take a breath and you need to take care of yourself. That's the first thing I want people to know. Not everybody is equipped for an entrepreneurial journey. I sure as hell never thought I would be an entrepreneur, but
Mhm.
I do think you want to find a place that is safe and a place that is not going to cause you trauma. And when I say this, I really mean this. Those kinds of interactions that I described, those are traumas. Those are micro traumas. And it takes, I read yesterday, I think it was yesterday, it takes 22 months to unwind from a trauma of being fired or being laid off. It gets wired into your psyche. And the reason is because your work is you putting yourself out there. So when somebody craps all over it, it's really hard not to take that personally. And the people
Mhm.
that go, oh, it's just business. I'm sorry. If you are putting your blood, sweat, and tears into something and they tell you it's worthless or they tell you it's not good, you internalize that. You second guess yourself. You doubt yourself, and you will never be able to do your best work. So you've got to find the people and the workplace that allows you to thrive. And this is the problem, Heather, because not enough leaders understand this is what they need to provide. So I say this, and people are like, well, where are the safe places? Well, this is where your
Right.
network comes in handy. This is where building your personal brand comes in handy, because when you are showing up and you're speaking about the topics that you love with authority, you become that person. You become the person that they want to talk to about AI or about accounting or about marketing, whatever it is, but build your expertise and share that with the world, because that will help you find your place. And it's never too late to start. So just, I was 50 when I redid all this. So, anybody can do it at any time. You just have to be true to yourself. And if you are suffering, stop, take a breath, take stock, and really examine what you're doing.
Well, and that's beautiful and absolutely crucial. And so there are a few different things to look at. Well, for you, it led to your own entrepreneurial journey. As you said, that may or may not be the next stepping stone for somebody else. But to know maybe community, maybe within your community, you're going to start something new.
Yeah.
If it and then what you'd also tapped into is to be fired like that when they lead with essentially you stink and that's why we're firing you versus this is just business, it's a layoff, you had to tell a lot of
Yeah.
people that they're gone, which is different than this really isn't working out.
Yeah.
Now clearly you could, they did you a favor, right,
Oh,
in the pervert,
for
but
sure.
they did you a favor. It didn't
Yeah.
feel good, but yeah, these are the
No,
things that can,
it's pushing me out of the nest is what got me here. So no,
right,
it was the right thing that my life needed. And the universe conspired to be like, she's not getting it. She's being treated like crap. She's not getting it. So something
right.
bad's about to happen. And had that not happened, I wouldn't have had the passion and the fire to want to help others the way I did. So I got fired. I got to do this. And it's all how you perceive things. And, if you are part of a company where the culture isn't bad, but maybe you're griping about your boss or people you work with, stop yourself, check yourself,
Right.
because you are part of the problem.
Right.
And you decide how you want to show up in the world. So, do you want to show up with heart? Or do you want to show up kvetching and moaning and whining about things that you don't have? Because it's up to you to change that.
I love that you just said that because sometimes it's not about the man,
Mhm.
we have to check hard within
Yeah.
ourselves to say, what am I bringing to the table?
Oh, yeah.
Is it my bad day? Is it my crumbling marriage? Is it my whatever?
Yeah.
That's very, very important
Yeah. And we
to
all
be able
have
to
those
do that. And we
moments.
all have those moments. But
Yeah.
if you're having them all the time,
Yeah. It's not a good look.
maybe it's
Not a
just
good
you.
look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Now, one more thing maybe to tap into
Mm.
before we start kind of and ending the call here is, doesn't it also have to come down to a basic enjoyment of fellow human beings? And I'm saying this because I was at a networking thing a little while ago, and there was somebody talking about leadership and talking about asking employees, how's your day, asking the personal questions. And I saw the faces in that room, and one of the women said, I'm not doing that. Like, why the heck would I ask somebody about, so tell me about your life? There was a disdain. But from her point of view, which I could tell, they're busy. They don't have time for that stuff.
Mhm.
But the nature of my question is to put all of these beautiful things into practice.
Yeah.
Do you need to come from your own fellow human enjoyment to know that, and that's that hard look in the mirror.
Yeah.
If you're wondering, why is this business breaking down, or I don't
Yeah.
have a clientele, what's really happening here, as that mirror?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I'm saying could be perceived as work because it feels uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And asking you to go someplace that is uncomfortable is important for your growth. And any business, any modern business today, there's a lot of change, and you have to get comfortable with change. But the whole world has changed around us. Why wouldn't our
Right.
leadership practices change? So if you choose to not ask those questions and to not show any interest in your employees, rest
Right.
assured they will show no interest in you. They will show no loyalty to you. They will not feel psychologically safe, and they won't perform as best as they could. They will look at it as a job and nothing more, and it doesn't fulfill them or inspire them in any way. Micromanagement never inspired anyone either, by the way. But when you decide, I'm going to ask some questions I've never asked before. And the first time I asked that question, how can I be the best leader for you? That is a humbling question. That
Hmm.
is saying, I don't know everything. And for a lot of leaders, showing any kind of vulnerability is really scary. It's really hard. And here's my thoughts on vulnerability. Vulnerability is like a spectrum. You don't have to go all in and say, I'm a CFO, but I was a shitty accountant. Like, you don't have to say that. You can
Right.
start off with, like, I just slipped on the ice outside and I hurt my butt. Did anybody else slip today?
Right.
That's just showing you're human. You're giving people an opportunity to relate to you. If you tell a parenting fail, that's not saying you're bad at marketing. That's not saying you aren't good at sales. It's just saying you're human. And so when you give people a peek into who you are, they're more interested, they're more invested. And
Right.
that is the whole point. So you don't have to do all of these things on day one, but start small and you will see the results. You will see the shift. I called my team Mavericks and Hustlers. They wore that badge proudly, but I gave them space. I wanted them to crush it. I wanted them to run their own businesses and think about, what are the things I need to do that's going to make it better? And by giving them that freedom and that autonomy, they did incredible, incredible things. And you know what? We had so much fun. And that's a piece that the best leaders
Hmm.
understand, that when you can have fun in your business, people look forward to those Zooms. They look forward to seeing each other in person. And that's the best compliment a leader could have. Like, I get to go to my team meeting. I'm so excited. You want that. You want that reputation for yourself. Don't you want that over? I'm not asking anyone about their weekend. Well, that's not a leader I want to work for.
Hmm. And that circled right back to what we get to do. I get to be on that Zoom with my team. I
Yeah.
get to sell this beautiful product,
Yep.
which, as a customer, I get to buy this product, or I
Mhm.
get to work with this company. I
Yep.
look forward to their customer service line because I know someone is going to be helping me.
Yeah.
I get to know that their website is working well. It all goes right back to, what we get to do today, and how we can all be of service to each other and for each other. So, Lyndsay, do you have any final thoughts, nuggets for us? You've garnished us with some amazing insights.
I would just love, whether you are a people leader or an individual contributor, start to lead with heart. You don't need to manage big teams to be a great leader. Anybody can be a great leader. You can be in high school, you can be in elementary school, you can be a grandmother. You all have it within you to be a great leader, but you've got to show up. And how you choose to live your day is up to you. So if you choose to lead with heart and you choose to live in gratitude, your life's going to be pretty good.
Absolutely. And great and limitless
Yeah.
and amazing and
Yeah.
fabulous. And Lyndsay, how can we find you?
So the easiest place to find me is my website, which is heartbeatforhire.com. All of my socials are linked to that, but I'm really active on LinkedIn. So if you're listening, please connect with me out on LinkedIn. Say you heard Heather's show. And yeah, that's probably, but I'm on all the socials. So all my handles are Lyndsay Dowd, H4H, but Lyndsay spelt funny. So just go to my website. It's easier.
I love how you named it. It's a good Lyndsay.
Thanks.
Lyndsay Dowd, thanks again. And thanks everybody for listening. This is Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything.